Welcome back to the Raw Prospect Podcast. My name is Nixon. To my left, that is Michael Wein. And today we are doing our first edition of the NFL Power Ranking series that we do every single season. If you're new here, we do every single week, or most weeks, a top 10 power rankings. And we'll explain the criteria here in a little bit. But this is a series that I'm very excited for. We do this every single year, like I said. And if you're interested in stuff like this, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We record twice a week, once with this podcast, the Raw Prospect Football Podcast, and once on Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports, a college football podcast specifically about the Texas Longhorns. So if that interests you at all, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you can know when our videos drop. But before we get into it now, got to introduce my co-host, Michael Wein. How are you doing, brother?
I'm great, except for the fact that I'm on the back end of getting over some kind of cold, allergies. I don't know what it is, but we're getting there. I say we're about 85% back to normal, so that's good. We're recording this on a Thursday night during the week 4 edition of Thursday Night Football. Seahawks and Cardinals. We'll give you our 2 best bets for the week, and we'll recap last week's picks later on after we do power rankings. I have my 2 best bets for the week that I feel very good about. But I'm very excited for this episode. Loaded sports week, and I just wanted to point that out. Like, the NFL slate is always good. It always delivers on Sunday. But have you guys seen the college football slate on Saturday, in addition to the Ryder Cup starting tomorrow and all of these crazy wild card and division races in baseball? It's one of the best sports weekends that I can remember in a long time. So I'm super excited and pumped for this episode. I'm excited to get into these power rankings, talk about these teams, where we agree, where we disagree, what our criteria is. And look, we're now 3 weeks in. We're not quite a quarter way into the season, but we have enough of a sample size now to justify doing this. And so that's why we're doing it now.
Yep, exactly. All right, so go ahead and explain what your criteria is, because I know you made something very specific for this year. So I'm excited to hear what you've come up with. I actually haven't even heard it yet.
So we are currently recording this September 25th, 3 weeks into the season. So we're not even a quarter of the way through the season. After this week, we'll be about a quarter of the way there through the regular season. It's still very early in the season. So I have 2 criterion, and I've weighted both of them for how much they count towards these power rankings. My first criterion is the team's current body of work and how good I deem the team to be right now, considering injuries, accounting in offense, defense, special teams. 75% of this week's power ranking, since we're so early on in the season, is your body of work and how good I think you are right now. The other 25% is a projection of where you're going to be come December and January, when it matters the most, once we get to the playoffs. But the reason that's weighted only a quarter right now is because I just think it's way too early to give an accurate projection of where most of these teams are going to be 4 months from now. But in 3 weeks, say we do these power rankings again in 3 weeks, say we're in the middle of October, we're through 7 weeks of the NFL season then, or 8 weeks of the NFL season then. These criterion will start to even out. It'll start to be, say, 50% or January, since we'll know even more at that point. We'll know more about injuries. We'll know more about availability. We'll know more about teams, right? It'll be a little easier to project what teams are going to be, in November and December at that point. So I guess the next time that we do these power rankings, it'll probably be closer to a 60-40, 50-50 criteria because we're later on in the season. But as of right now, only 3 weeks in, it's 75% what you look like, how good you are right now in your body of work, meaning who you've played and who you've beaten, how good you look doing so, and 25%. There is still that project that we do like to include. It's just not as much right now since we're only September 25th. So that's how I've done my power rankings today. What about?
Yeah, I did it a little bit more like gut feel, like how I think these teams would rank kind of facing each other right now. And also just how good I think the teams are. Like I tried not to, overreact to slow starts to the season from a couple of different teams. We'll get to that later on. But I think I've gone a little bit based off of how I think the teams will be in 3 weeks time or 4 weeks time, as well as like how they are right now. Cause I know like we're still so early on in the season. And some teams had, super tough schedules to start out the season, which I'll get to explaining in a little bit. But I think looking at records right now can be a little bit misleading. So that's kind of how I did it. I'll go ahead and get into my 10 through 6 now. And if you're new here, this is how we kind of do it. I share my 10 through 6, and then Michael reacts to it, kind of points out where we defer, and then that's where we get into conversations about individual teams. So at number 10 for me, I have the Indianapolis Colts. At number 9, Tampa Bay. At number 8, I have the LA Chargers. 7, the LA Rams. And then 6, I had the Green Bay Packers. And I'll get into like a little bit of a conversation on the Packers, and I think we can kind of go back and forth here too. But I'm interested to hear your reaction to it first, and then we can kind of have some conversation about these teams.
So say your list one more time.
Yeah, so I have the Indianapolis Colts at 10, Tampa Bay Bucks at number 9, the Chargers at 8, Rams at 7, and then Green Bay at 6.
Okay. So here's my list. And then we can just jump into conversation. So we have more time for that conversation. Full transparency, we might get into this later in the episode, or I could just explain it right now. You have the Colts at 10. I would have them at 11. My 10 through 6. Number 10, I have the Seattle Seahawks. Number 9, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 8, I have Tampa Bay. Number 7, I have Baltimore. And number 6, I have the Los Angeles Rams. So I guess given that information, Emmy, where would you like to start this conversation?
Let's talk about the Seahawks. I think it's very interesting that you have them at 10. I considered them at number 10. Their defense has looked really, really good, but kind of give your, I guess, pitch to the people out there who don't think the Seahawks should be in the top 10 as to why you put them there.
Well, every team says they aspire to have a fast and physical defense, but the Seahawks actually live that.
Yeah.
When you play the Seahawks, it hurts. The number one thing they do really well so far, well, they do a lot of things well defensively, but they stop the run really well. They're allowing 90 rushing yards per game so far this year. They faced San Francisco, New Orleans, and Pittsburgh. Okay. They're 7th in the NFL in stopping the run. They're the only team in the NFL not to allow a rushing touchdown so far this season. Really good against the run, but this defensive front, they're fast, physical, strong, and we do a podcast on this channel called Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. Here's a paper popper. Do you remember Byron Murphy?
Yep, I remember.
He went to Texas. He's been dominant so far this year amongst all interior defensive linemen in the NFL. He's got 3 sacks. That ranks first. He's got 12 quarterback pressures. That ranks first. He's got 8 quarterback hurries. That ranks first. He's got 9 run stops. That ranks first. He's got 9 solo tackles. That ranks first. So when you look at that, he's been one of the maybe the best interior defensive lineman in the league. They got Boye Mafe. They've got DeMarcus Lawrence. They've got a bunch of dudes up front that can get after the passer. They play fast and physical. They've had some injuries on the back end, but this defense, like, I don't envision a lot of teams scoring. If they're at full strength, I don't envision a lot of teams getting into the high 20s or even into the 30s on Seattle. There's a lot left to be seen. I think they face 2 pretty limited offenses. I will admit that, in Pittsburgh and New Orleans, but they did what a good team should do. They absolutely throttled New Orleans, and I'd argue they dominated Pittsburgh. I think the score of that game was closer than the game actually was, because they outgained Pittsburgh. They were better on 4th down. They were better on 3rd down. They got to Aaron Rodgers 4 or 5 times. They pressured the quarterback. They way outrushed Pittsburgh, even though Pittsburgh's not a good running team. And I just think Sam Darnold's just like the complementary quarterback that they need to tie all this in together. He's 7 of 11 this year, and this is before tonight, on passes of 20-plus air yards. Okay, and he's completed 56% of those passes of 20-plus air yards, since the start of last year. That's first in the NFL. He's playing like a top half of the league quarterback. They have a good run game. I think Jackson Smith and Jimbo looks great to start the year. And keep an eye on Torrey Horton. He had a kickoff return for a touchdown last week against the Saints. He's made a couple big catches offensively. I think the knock on this Seattle team is they don't have a ton of firepower. But I think with this run game, the fact that they're protecting Sam Darnold, only been sacked 3 times this year, and they face San Francisco and that Pittsburgh pass rush, I just think this is a very complimentary football team. They did lose week 1 to San Francisco, a division rival. They're 3-0. But I think Seattle does more things well right now than San Francisco does. San Francisco's run game has been stifled a little bit here to start the season. They have some problems up front with their offensive line. They have injuries. So I really like this Seattle team. I might be higher on them than others are, but that's why I have them number 10.
Yeah, no, I think I can't even say you're wrong, honestly. Because when you think about the story of this NFL season, when we look back in week 18, the NFC West is going to play a big part in that, I think. The NFC West is going to be an absolute bloodbath this year, in my opinion. So if we turn around and this Seattle team wins 12 games, I wouldn't even blink at that. This defense, I think, is legit. I think at certain points, like maybe these corners can be had a little bit, especially opposite of Tariq Woolen. They have Kobe Bryant in that spot, and he's okay. But I think that's probably like the one thing about the defense that maybe you can, exploit a little bit. But outside of that, they've been just about lights out. So, yeah, I think Seattle has just about as good a case as anyone to, end up being one of the surprise teams of the NFL this year. But with that, we can kind of transition into the Colts conversation. I have them at 10 just because I think, just because of how highly I think of this coaching staff. I think the, addition to the defensive staff of, what's his name? From Cincinnati. Oh my gosh, I can't think of his name.
Anarumo?
Yeah. Anarumo. Yeah, Lou Anarumo. Yeah, that's what his name is. The addition of him to this defense has been amazing. For years, people I have a friend that's a Colts fan. He freaking hated Gus Bradley. Gus Bradley kind of ran that kind of cover one or cover three style defense, and he kind of played the game of like, we're gonna do what we do, and we're gonna do it well, and you're just gonna have to beat us. And a lot of teams beat them because they knew exactly how to call the game to beat those coverage and exploit those coverages. It was very predictable. This has been the exact opposite of that. And this defense has been, I think, a huge part in them being 3-0. Everyone wants to talk about Daniel Jones, and he's been fantastic. The offense looks great, but they're not where they are without their defense playing the way it is right now. And then the other part of it, of course, is Daniel Jones, who I think I watched that game the other day and I was like, who the hell is this guy? Like there was plays where he showed like legitimate pocket presence, like slid in the pocket, evaded the rush, then threw a bomb down the field, like making plays like that. Like we never saw anything like that in New York. Not even in that, year where they made the playoffs. They were kind of a, uh, run the ball, kind of play action bootleg kind of offense. They were kind of, giving him half field reads, trying to take care of the ball, trying to, almost, I guess, coddle him a little bit. But no, Daniel Jones right now, he's playing like legitimate, like high level NFL quarterbacking, and it's been extremely impressive.
Colts are a good team. I had them at 11. Um, I was really splitting hairs between them and Seattle. You could go either way on it. They have one of the most efficient passing games in the league. They might be the most efficient passing game in the league. I don't have the stats, but I guarantee you they're up there. Okay, they're second in EPA per dropback. So Daniel Jones has been terrific. They've done what good teams do, right? I don't think Miami's any good, but they absolutely throttled them in week 1. Okay, I don't think Tennessee's all that great, but that's a divisional game, and they pretty much throttled them for the most part, right? And there's some unpredictability there because you don't know much. You don't have much tape out there with Cam Ward in that Titans new offense. So they did what they're supposed to do. They found a way to slip by Denver, who I think is a very good 1-2 football team. They have their kinks to work out, but they've lost 2 tough games so far at the buzzer. So we're splitting hairs. I want to see a little more from Indianapolis, and I'll admit that's really the only reason they're not quite in the top 10. But you're splitting hairs. They do have the Rams on the road this upcoming weekend. We're recording this Thursday, so on Sunday they'll play a good Rams team who I have ranked 6, and maybe that's a good transition to our next topic. And then they had the Chargers a couple weeks later. Just want to see them against a couple what I would call bona fide contenders, and then they'll probably start to rise up the ranking because, as I mentioned earlier, 3/4 of my power rankings is body of work and how good I think you are right now. I think the Colts are the clear-cut favorites in that division right now, provided health. They have one of the best pass-blocking offensive lines in football. I think they're second or third in pass block win rate. They've got a defense that doesn't give up explosive plays, right? Jonathan Taylor has refound his juice here early on this season. They've got a good run game. They're a good complementary football team. You can rank them 10. You could even have them 9. I wouldn't have a problem with it. But for now, I have them 11. So it's a slight disagreement, but it's not something
Yeah.
that we need to.
Yeah, it's not I don't think we really disagree that much. And the last thing I'll say on Indianapolis is I think they possibly could have the most deep group of weaponry in the league. Um, Arguably, it's probably close between like Philly, maybe Tampa Bay when they're healthy, a couple other teams here and there too, but I think this indie group is underrated in a lot of different ways. So, but yeah, we can move on to our next conversation. Where else did we defer? I think
Remind me, where did you have Tampa Bay?
I had Tampa Bay at 9.
Okay, I have them at 8. We can talk about them a little bit, I guess. Do you have thoughts on the Buccaneers? They are 3-0, but
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it short. I mean, I think they're about what I expected them to be. I think Todd Bowles has done a really good job for their defense. Their defense has probably been a little better than what I expected, but they're also just completely like riddled by injuries right now. They lost Cody Mock and Kalijah Cansey for the season. That's going to be a big deal. They're going to get Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin back, so that's definitely going to help for sure. So it'll even things out a little bit, but um, at the end of the day, I think this team kind of is what it is. Like I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders. Like I thought there was a chance they could jump into that category before the season, but it doesn't look like they will because they've kind of lost some important players to injury. They could prove me wrong. You never know. But I do think they're kind of a step below some of the other top teams in the NFC.
yeah, I have them 8. We're splitting hairs here. Really, the one thing I'll say is they are riddled by injuries. I take that into account because I think getting 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 starting offensive linemen back into the fold here pretty soon will absolutely help their run game. I don't believe they're playing with Chris Godwin. Mike Evans just had a hamstring injury. So they do have their fair share of injuries. But this isn't something that Baker Mayfield hasn't dealt with before. And I just think Baker Mayfield has it. Like the clutch playmaking all 3 weeks, getting by, game-winning drives, 3 straight weeks. I think the Emeka Egbuka pick is an absolute home run. He honestly, to me, looks like a number 1 receiver or has looked that way the first 3 weeks. Catches along the sideline, catches over the middle, just does everything, has good hands. Um, their defense is hit or miss sometimes, but I just think the injuries, whether you rank them 8, whether you rank them 9, once they get some of those guys back healthy, I think they have the quarterback play. Really, it's the quarterback play for me.
Yeah.
Baker
Yeah.
Mayfield, 0 turnovers so far this season, taking care of the football. I think once he gets a fully healthy offensive line and more of a semblance of a consistent run game, Tampa Bay could be dangerous. I don't think they're bona fide Super Bowl contenders, but they could be dangerous. Maybe with a
Yeah.
move at the deadline to help out their defense. We'll see. Or that's way too far down the road to even speculate on that. But I did take injuries into account. So you have them 8, I have them 9. You have the Colts 10, I have the Colts 11. We're really splitting hairs on those.
Yeah, I think the big conversation for us to have is Kansas City. You have them at 9. I have them all the way up at number 5. So let's kind of discuss Kansas City a little bit. I'll kind of give my piece on it. So I think so. Kansas City, they're interesting right now because obviously you have the fact that they're a perennial Super Bowl contender for all these years. They have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. They're obviously going to be a contender for as long as they have those two guys. We're well established, well beyond that point of over saying that. We've said that millions of times at this point. But I think the thing this year kind of is I think they lost to 2 really good teams at the end of the day. Like I think I can kind of forgive them for not, coming out super hot week 1. I mean, they they've had to deal with some injuries. I think they played well against Philly. They were there until the end, and if Travis Kelsey catches that ball and walks into the end zone, who knows what happens in that game? So I don't know. I just think if Kansas City was sitting here at 2-1 with a win over Philly, we would be looking at them entirely differently. And it's really the difference is only one play. So that's where I'm kind of at on Kansas City. I think they're going to be, squarely in the mix of like the 5 to 10 range throughout the season. I don't think they're going to be like a top seed or anything in the AFC, but I do think come playoff time, they're going to be a threat to do what they always do, which is get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I do think let me start here. Like the offense is going to get a lot better when Xavier Worthy comes back. He might even return this week against Baltimore, which would be big. Baltimore's I'll talk about that later. And then Rashee Rice comes back in a couple more weeks after that. What did you say last time? Week 6? I think after week 6 he'll be
Yes,
able to come
after
back.
week 6. Yes, a 6-game suspension, so week 7.
So I think that's 3 weeks down the road. They'll get those reinforcements. A super positive for this Kansas City offense right now, which is what I'm weighing more heavily than in the future, is Tyquan Thornton, who I never would have thought would be a huge part of this offense. But credit to Patrick Mahomes for finding him and making him a part of this offense because he's been needed, especially, he made some big plays in that game on the road against the Giants on Sunday night. He's tied for the team lead in receiving yards this year, and he's got 2 receiving touchdowns. He's just been this is a guy that was drafted by the Patriots. He was released. I think he was a 5th-round pick. The Chiefs pick him up, and they've made something of him. So I give them credit there. I do think their offense is going to be a lot better. And once it gets better, I'll move them up. I'll probably have them in the top 6. And I do get your argument about, they played a game against who do they play week 1?
The Chargers. Yeah.
The Chargers. They played that game. It was in Brazil, playing across the seas or in a different country. That's kind of weird sometimes. It was on a Friday night. There are elements to that I can forgive. It's a divisional loss, so that you never like to take a divisional loss, especially to the team that you're probably competing with most for the division at this point. And then yes, they were in it with the Eagles, but they didn't get it done. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. Just right now, I'm waiting to see what this offense is with all their parts healthy. I don't like the fact that they're relying on Patrick Mahomes. I get it. He's good at it, and he does it a lot. But he leads this team in rushing yards right now. I just don't know if that's a sustainable way to win over the course of a 17-game season. Maybe it is. And maybe if any team can pull it off, it's Kansas City. Their defense is really what's going here's the way I'll put it. Run game isn't good right now outside of Mahomes. I do think the injuries are going to help them offensively. I don't know that they're going to be some sort of elite offense when he comes back, but they're certainly going to be a lot better than they have been. And I'll give you that if they had Worthy and Rashee Rice, they probably beat one of Philly or the Chargers, but they don't. And so I'm factoring that in. I just want to see more semblance of a run game outside of Mahomes. But at the end of the day, when you look at the Chiefs, it's Andy Reid at number 15 and number 87 at tight end with all these other complementary weapons and a defense that gets it done in the postseason and a defense that still looks very good so far this year. I have them at 9. I don't really know how to explain it. I just don't love their situation right now offensively. But they do have some injuries. I just want to see more of a run game, more balance from this team offensively. And yeah, they lost 2 tough games, but that's the reality of the NFL. I have Baltimore ranked 2 spots ahead of them at number 7. They're 1 and 2 as well. And the interesting thing is those 2 teams play each other on Sunday. One of those teams is going to be 1 and 3. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But you have them 5. I've got no problem with that. I have them 9. Probably settle on a compromise somewhere in between there. I don't think they're a top. I don't think they're gonna become a top 3 or 4 like elite team in this regular season. But once we get to the playoffs, that's a different story. That's a different season.
Yeah.
The postseason is. We're talking about September football, and so far they haven't looked great to me. And so
Yeah.
they're for me anywhere in that 5 to 9 range, 5 to 8
No,
range.
that's that's
You could even move them ahead of Tampa Bay. That would be fine with me. But that's what I got in Kansas City.
yeah. I think that's fair. One thing I will say before we move on from Kansas City, I know we've spent a while on this one, but where the hell is Elijah Mitchell? Like they picked up Elijah Mitchell in free agency, and like I've been wondering where the heck he is because like they need answers at running back. Pacheco and Hunt have been kind of so far this year, and like I searched it up on Google just now, and like there's literally no answers on it. Like it's like they're just giving him like DNP coaches decisions. It's really weird. He's been a healthy scratch the last 3 weeks. It's very strange.
One last little conversation. This can be like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we can get into the top 5. Where'd you have the Rams again?
Ooh, the Rams. I had them at 7.
Okay, I have them at 6. So again, not a huge disagreement. Here's what I'll say on the Rams really fast. They're 2-1. I think they're a really good football team. I don't know that I put them in that tier 1 Super Bowl contender tier right now, but they're really good. One thing the Rams do really well is they dominate field position. And when you have a good defense, especially a good front seven like the Rams do, and you give Matt Stafford and Sean McVay good starting field position, you're likely to be a good complementary football team. Their average starting field position this year is the 35.1 yard line. That's first in the NFL. Their average starting field position allowed is 25.2, the 25.2 yard line. That's second in the NFL. In addition to that, they blocked 3 field goals so far this year. I think their special teams is really good. Remember, there is that third phase to football, and we've seen special teams kick some teams in the teeth so far this year. So I take that into consideration. They're efficient on both sides of the ball. They're 5th in points per drive. They're 8th in points per drive allowed. They have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL so far this year. They've got 12 sacks. That's first in the league, tied with Denver. The one thing with the Rams that I'm not necessarily worried about, but I'm just keeping my eye on, well, actually, there's 2 things. Red zone struggles, not what I expect from a Sean McVay team. 46.2% touchdown rate in the red zone. It's 23rd in the league. I do expect that to get better as we get further into the season. And then I do still think, based on what we saw in the second half against Philadelphia, that they could probably use maybe 1 or 2 more corners. Maybe at the trade deadline, they go out and help that secondary a little bit. But I mean, we're nitpicking at that point.
Yeah.
Stafford still got it. Their offense is like top 10 in most categories. Their defense is really good, especially in the front seven. But I don't think they're a top 5 team. I'd have them, 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think CJ Gardner-Johnson just got dropped by the Texans, who are that's another conversation. They're a complete dumpster fire. If you're new here, we also do what did we call it last year? Like the sour rankings,
Yep.
like the bottom 10 teams in the NFL come
Yep.
later in the season. Do like a kind of a draft discussion around that.
Yep.
We'll kind of get to the Texans at that point probably, but they just dropped CJ Gardner Johnson. I think the Rams would be a great landing spot for him. That would be a really good fit.
All right. That does it for that conversation. Do you have anything else you want to say on the Rams? We got to move on fast, but any like one?
No, I think you covered just about everything.
All right. Here is my 5 through 1. And we can still get into a conversation about Baltimore and some of these other teams. But here's my 5 through 1. So number 5, I've got the Detroit Lions. Number 4, I have the Green Bay Packers. Number 3, I've got the Los Angeles Chargers. And then 2 and 1, I've got Buffalo and Philadelphia. So my 5 through 1 is Detroit, Green Bay, Los Angeles, Buffalo, and Philadelphia. Your reaction?
Baltimore, no Baltimore?
Baltimore is number 7 for me currently.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, that's fair. Okay. Two things come to mind. Definitely we already had the Kansas City conversation, but the Detroit conversation I think is an interesting one. I have Detroit all the way up at number 2.
Wow.
Just because I was very impressed with their performance against Baltimore last week. I think this. I mean, it could backfire, but I thought the coaching questions that we had going into the season. I think they kind of answered a lot of them last week. And I know it's Baltimore and they're struggling on defense right now, but I was looking at two things: their offensive and defensive coaching, and then their interior offensive line. And their interior offensive line, those two dudes on the interior, Tate Ratledge and Christian Mahogany, they had a breakout game. They were just blowing dudes off the ball. I'm pretty sure Penei Sewell had like a 99.3 run blocking grade or some shit like that. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, this Detroit team, man, I think their defense is better than last year. Man, I don't know. I think I think they I think they're really freaking good, and I have less questions about their team as a whole compared to what I think of Buffalo right now. Where I mean, Buffalo, is Buffalo. They're fantastic. Josh Allen is Josh Allen, but I just think they're still too reliant on him. They have the running game and their offense is amazing, but I just still have a lot of questions about their defense, and whether or not they can make the plays in big moments to get those big stops against elite teams. Like I'm just not sure.
So for context, you have Detroit at 2. What is your top 5?
Yeah,
What does that
yeah.
look like?
So my top 5. So we already talked about Kansas City. They're at number 5. I have Baltimore at 4. Then I have Buffalo at 3, Detroit at 2, and then Philly at 1. So Philly, we both agree, is the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, real quickly on Philly, and then I'll get back to Detroit and Buffalo. Here's some numbers. Paper plop. In the last 17 games, including the playoffs, that's a full regular season. 17 games. In the last 17 games, including last year's playoffs, that Jalen Hurts has started the game and finished the game. Emmy, can you guess their record in those 17 games?
17-0.
Correct. In those games,
Holy fuck.
Jalen Hurts. Everyone wants to talk about this passing game, and I get it. Okay? It's not the prettiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
In those 17 games where they are 17-0, they haven't lost. 43 touchdowns and 5 turnovers.
Damn.
That's pretty good. Jalen Hurts so far this year. The passing game came alive in the second half against Los Angeles, right? They were down like 3 scores. They had to come back, and they did. So they proved a little bit to me there. Need to see more of that, right? But right now, numbers aren't going to blow you away. but 71% completion, 3 touchdowns, a 100.5 passer rating, and 4 rushing touchdowns, most of which come on the tush push, which is just like an unstoppable play. And that conversation is for another day.
Yeah.
When the Eagles have both Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown healthy for a full game, 44-7.
Golly.
They just don't lose. And when you don't lose, until you start losing, I don't care what it looks like. I think they've got the best roster in the league. And until they start losing games, to me, they're the defending Super Bowl champions, and they're number one. And I think we'd agree on that. But on Detroit, do you have anything on Philly before I get to Detroit?
I'm just gonna shout out Jordan Davis. I mean, he was like the last like Georgia guy that hadn't like broken out yet on that Philly D line. And my God, does he look amazing this year? That interior defensive line is going to be stupidly good the next 5 to 10 years with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter in there. Just insane.
You have Detroit at number 5. Think back to last year when we did these power rankings. What team was I like super consistently high on?
Detroit.
So I'm high on Detroit. Like, I have them in the top 5.
Yeah. No, yeah.
But I wonder if you're jumping on the train with me. That's what it sounds like, at least.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember last year you were just a little bit hesitant to jump completely on the Detroit Lions hype train, and then they ended up losing in the playoff game. But that's a different story.
Their whole team got hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, the entire defense got hurt. Similarly, though, to the Eagles stat that I gave you, this isn't quite as impressive, but the Lions in their last 20 games, 17 wins in their last 20 games dating back to last year. That's first in the NFL. In those 20 games, they've scored 667 points. That's first in the NFL. And in those 20 games, they have a plus 247 point differential, which is first in the NFL. So their total body of work dating back all the way to last year is great outside of that playoff game where basically their entire defense was in the hospital and, they had to play. Who did they play in that game? Was it Washington? Like a red-hot Washington
They
team?
were red-hot, yeah.
They had to play a red-hot Jaden Daniels with their entire defense basically washed out. Not excusing it. You made the point, though. You were really impressed by Monday night. I was super impressed by Monday night. Honestly, I don't know if I was going to have Detroit in my top 5 because that week 1 performance still sticks in my head. They were absolutely dominated by Green Bay. And to be clear, I think if they play again later on in the season, that's a much more competitive game. And that's like maybe even Detroit wins that game because it'll be in Detroit at home. I do think they've answered most of the questions with these coordinators. That Monday night game, though, only team in the Super Bowl era to record 7+ sacks, have 4 or more rushing touchdowns, have 0 turnovers, and allow 0 sacks in any game in NFL history. It was that dominant of a performance. The scoreboard doesn't even tell the story. The Lions absolutely pushed around physically and emotionally that Ravens team. They went up and down the field. First drive, they kick it off. Jared Goff hits Amon-Ra St. Brown a couple times. They convert on 4th down. They're one of the best situational teams in the NFL. 3rd down and 4th down, they continue to be great. As long as you give Jared Goff time, like this team they've got too many good players not to be a top 5 team in this league. I guess the conversation we should have if you have them at 2, because we're both really high on them, but if you have them at 2 and I have them at 5 and you have Buffalo at 3, I guess the conversation we should have is Buffalo. because I guess we
Yeah.
slightly defer on the Bills,
Yeah, just a little bit.
just a little bit.
Yeah.
I've been talking for a while, so why not you give a little bit more on Buffalo?
Yeah. My thing on Buffalo is you can run the ball on them. And that scares me when it comes to, obviously you can kind of get away with it playing Miami, and Miami has their own problems, of course. But they give it up in the run game. They really do. And obviously they have some guys hurt right now. Daquan Jones is out. Ed Oliver's out. But they kind of got pushed back a lot by that Buffalo or by that Miami O line, and that's not exactly the greatest O line in the world. So it is a little concerning to me. And I don't know. I think I'm not the highest on Sean McDermott. If you were to make me choose with a gun in my head who has the better coach between say Detroit, Buffalo, Baltimore, and Green Bay, I probably put Buffalo's head coach last, and that's not because I hate John McDermott, but I don't know if you can win a Super Bowl with Sean McDermott as your head coach. I don't know. It 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 feels like um, his defenses have kind of hit a ceiling, or maybe it's just their roster construction. It might just be a combination of both. I'm just not that high on it right now.
Buffalo through 3 games. Okay. No team in NFL history has ever done well. Buffalo through 3 games. They're 3-0. They've scored over 100 points. They have 0 turnovers. And by the way, the Bills have gone 8 straight games without a turnover, tied with the 2024 Chiefs for the longest streak since 1933.
Whoa.
When turnovers were first tracked. The Bills have won the turnover battle in 25 consecutive games. 0 turnovers so far this year. They're not penalized a whole lot. They've got less than 15 penalties. I don't know the exact number. But they're 3-0, 100-plus points scored, 0 turnovers, less than 15 penalties, 150-plus rushing yards per game. They're running the football very consistently. 250-plus net passing yards per game. I think they're first in the league in yards per game. No team in NFL history has ever done all of that in any 3-game span in NFL history. So they're doing something currently that no other team has done. And I just think I get the questions about Sean McDermott. I have some of the same questions, especially when we get to December and January. I get it on the run defense. You can run the football on Buffalo. But they're not giving up a whole lot through the air so far this year. Even though I still have some questions about, I don't love their defensive personnel. I guess that's just the simplest way to put it. There are a bunch of teams that I guess I like the defensive personnel of more than I do Buffalo. I don't think that, their defense isn't anything special. But I think when you have Josh Allen, who's a superhero, you get all of his upside with 0 turnovers. You get a run game that's averaging over 150 rushing yards per game, or at least has been consistently effective. When you get all the upside of Josh Allen, plus good complementary football, you win the turnover battle, 25 straight games, you don't turn the football over, you run the football, you try to keep the opposing offense off the field. I just, the thing for me the thing that worries me about Baltimore, I guess just to make a point here, is their defense is on the field a lot. And one of the reasons it's on the field a lot, and I think it plays into some of their struggles, is because Baltimore's so explosive offensively. They're so dynamic offensively that sometimes Lamar will score in 3 or 4 plays. And then that defense is right back on the field. They are playing a ton of snaps. That's one of the reasons I think their defense is struggling so far.
Yeah.
And like, there's no argument against it. Their defense hasn't been good. They're
Yeah.
32nd in total defense. They're 31st in scoring defense. But I do think there's hope with Baltimore. Number one, their quarterback plays phenomenal. We all know that. Listen to this stat. Lamar Jackson, 9 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. Okay, 9.6 yards per attempt. That's first in the league. And a 141.8 passer rating. That's first in the league. Okay. There are 7 other QBs in NFL history with 9+ passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions through 3 games. And all 7 of those teams were 3-0 through 3 games. Baltimore's 1-2, and it's not because of their offense. I get it. For whatever reason, Derrick Henry has some sort of like a fumbling problem late in games. They're not great situationally. That's one of my knocks on Baltimore. Similarly to Buffalo, I don't know if I trust them yet in the biggest moments in January and December, January, especially if they can't figure out this ball security issue with their run game, because it hasn't just been Derrick Henry. But their offense is so good, and they have Lamar Jackson. He's not turning the ball over similarly to Josh Allen. It's just their defense is letting them down. But part of it is they're on the field so much because the offense is so good. So in a way, they kind of get, I don't want to say they get penalized by their offense, but they have to play more snaps, and it's just more tiring, if that makes sense. But I do think there's hope. I do think they have good play. It's not that they don't have good players on defense. I do think they have good players on defense. 5 of their 6 highest paid players are on defense. And if you think back to last year, in weeks 1 through 10, Baltimore's defense was not good. They had the 25th ranked scoring defense, the 27th total defense, the 32nd pass defense. They were 30th in third downs allowed. They were 26th in opposing passer rating in weeks 1 through 10 last year. You know what they were in weeks 13 through 18?
Like top 5 in a lot of those.
First in scoring defense, first in total defense, first in passing defense, first in third down conversion percentage, first in red zone defense, and first in opposing passer rating allowed. So last year they started 1-2, I believe. Their defense wasn't good at the start of the season. They have good players there. They just got to find a way to clean up a couple things, especially in the running game, because Detroit ran up and down the field. That's got to be better. They got to clean that up. So, like, they're in the top 10. I think they are or will probably be in that or around that Super Bowl bubble, but I just can't currently put them there right now because the defense is so pathetic. But I understand why it's pathetic. I just explained it to you. And then Buffalo, we're splitting hairs there. 2, 3, whatever. Here's the thing. We've had this conversation before. I don't know do we trust either of those teams situationally against Kansas City in the playoffs?
Probably not.
Probably not. And so later on in the season, these rankings will probably change a little bit. Kansas City will probably move up in my rankings, as I mentioned earlier. But I just think that Buffalo, they win the turnover battle. They don't turn the ball over. They run the ball. And they have an MVP caliber quarterback who you get all of his upside, but he's not putting the ball in harm's way very often. I just think there is a formula to win a lot there. It's just whether or not you trust Sean McDermott and you trust this defense in the biggest moments later on in the season. But right now, I think they're one of the 3 best teams in the league, whether you put them 2 or 3 or 4. I don't really care.
Yeah. And on that note, in a weird way, this is going to sound crazy, and the Chargers could probably make me look insanely stupid for saying this, but I actually trust the Chargers more situationally than I do Buffalo and Baltimore against Kansas City right now, which is insane to say, but that's kind of how I feel about Jim Harbaugh right now and what they're kind of doing, because I think if you think about the Chargers coaching staff and the way it's set up, Greg Roman, who's a running game mastermind, and has kind of figured out how to formulate the passing game around Justin Herbert's strengths with his arm strength. And then on defense, you have Jesse Minner, who's going to be a head coach next year, no doubt about it. So I feel better about LA's coaching staff than I do Baltimore or Buffalo.
I would agree. Right now, Jim Harbaugh is a better coach than John Harbaugh. And like the reason I have the Chargers number 3 is because like Justin Herbert would probably be my MVP right now. He's beaten. Okay, so he beats the Chiefs in week 1. Then he beats the Raiders. And then he beats the Broncos. And in that Broncos game, he was getting hit a ton. Like he got really banged up in that game. But he's first in passing yards. He's second in passing touchdowns. He's 5th in passer rating. He's 5th in yards per attempt. And he's running more often. We talked about that, I think, on our last episode. The Chargers have a run game. I think we look back at this offseason and say Keenan Allen was one of the most underrated pickups of the offseason because he has added another element to their passing game. He was a late pickup. They bring back Mike Williams, but he retires. So they bring in Keenan Allen back to the team. And that's paying dividends for their passing game. We all know about Ladd McConkey. But right now, Keenan Allen is the only player in the NFL with 60-plus receiving yards and at least 1 receiving touchdown in all 3 games. And they've all been against division rivals. Remember, 75% of my ranking right now is body of work and how good I think the team is right now. The Chargers, I don't think, really have like a glaring weakness right now. They run the ball. Amari Hampton looks good. I guess you could say it's their offensive line. But like Herbert is so good that doesn't really seem to matter all that much until it does, maybe later on in the season. They've played good teams. They've beaten those teams. Their defense is stellar. They have one of the best red zone defenses, maybe the best red zone defense in the league. Derwin James in that Denver game I think he won AFC Defensive Player of the Week or something like that. He was fantastic. I don't know the status of who was it that got hurt on their defense a couple of weeks ago. Was it Khalil Mack?
Yeah.
I think he's hurt, but he'll probably be back soon. I just love every aspect of the Chargers right now. And quite frankly, I'd probably agree with you. Right now, I would trust them more. I would trust Jim Harbaugh more than I do Sean McDermott for sure. And then, like, between the Harbaugh brothers, I think right now the edge has to go to Jim.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy to think about for sure.
I think the last
I think you've kind of convinced me, dude. Honestly, I think I if I did my rankings again, I would rank the Chargers a lot higher for sure.
The last team we need to discuss before we get into our bets and get out of here is the Packers.
Yeah.
I have them 4. You have them 6. Is that right?
Yes, 6. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and give your bit on the Packers.
Yeah. So I think the Packers are a really good team. I think their defense is fantastic. But I also think they've got to figure out, kind of their pass catcher situation a little bit more. And I think Cleveland kind of, I don't want to say expose that, but I think if you have a group of good corners, I think you can play man coverage against these Green Bay wide receivers. And especially with Christian Watson being out. Once he gets back, maybe that changes. But right now, Golden hasn't quite emerged yet. I think he has the potential to, but they just haven't quite gotten that connection with him and Love yet going. Dobbs has been a little bit inconsistent, and he still has his injury problems as well. Wicks is okay. He has drop issues still. I think the pass catchers is the question that I have about Green Bay still. Their offensive line has been really good. Their defense has been amazing, of course. So that's the thing. That's the question that I got to answer for Green Bay. And I think if they, how do I put this? If they hit like the requisite green lights in terms of the wide receiver position, like throughout the course of the season, like if Golden eventually, has that breakout and becomes a star, Watson comes back, he looks healthy, and then they get, you know, the trio of Kraft, Watson, and Golden all together playing well at the same time, then you're talking about a real Super Bowl contender. But I can't like quite put them in the top 5 right now without that happening yet.
Yeah, looking back on it, I have Green Bay 4. I try not to punish them too much for Sunday. It happens to the best of teams.
Yeah.
They just got bit late in that game by a costly turnover. Cleveland's scoring drives in that game were 4 yards and 16 yards. So, I mean, you can't really penalize their defense for that. They just Jordan Love made a costly error in the fourth quarter that allowed Cleveland life, and then I think they got a field goal blocked. They had a chance to win the game still. Their defense was great for 3 quarters. It happens in the NFL. It's not a game they should have lost, don't get me wrong, but it does happen more than you would probably expect. And Cleveland's got a good defense. Like we've all known that. It's just their offense is pathetic.
Yeah.
Their defense is great. It's one of the reasons I have them this high. They're first in points per game allowed. They're first in yards per play allowed. They're up there in sacks. They're top 5 in sacks. They're second in quarterback hits. We've talked about the addition of Micah Parsons. I won't even belabor that any longer. I have an issue with Green Bay's offense. And looking back, I probably moved them down a spot. The reason I had them ahead of Detroit is because they throttled Detroit, but I guess we can go back and forth on that. And maybe that game looks different, today than it did 3 weeks ago. I think it does, and that's what you're factoring in, so I get it. My dilemma with Green Bay's offense is, number one, of course, the injuries, but almost every team on this list has their fair share of injuries. That's when you kind of know we're deep enough into the season to do a power ranking. My thing with Green Bay is, and I get your thing on the pass catchers, they're bottom half of the league in rush yards per game. 98 run yards per game. They're 20th in the league. They're not terrible, but they're also not like blowing teams away by running the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. They're 27th in yards per rush attempt, 3.4. Okay, so when they do run the ball, it's not getting them very much. So they haven't been the greatest running team yet. Yet they're 7th in rushing attempts per game. They're running the ball almost 29 times per game, but they're not doing it effectively. And they're 28th in pass attempts per game. So it's like this dilemma of, okay, well, you're trying to run the ball, and that's good because you're running it almost 29 times per game, but you're not running it effectively enough, and you're not passing the ball. So it's like, do they just need to run the ball better, and that opens up the passing game? Or maybe do they need to think about passing a little more often and running a little less? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. It's kind of like a dilemma with their offense. I think one of the reasons I had them 4 is their defense, and I do think once they're able to get Christian Watson and hopefully later on in the season Jaden Reed back, I just have a belief that a couple of these guys are going to break out and they're going to be good. I think they're in that 4 to 6 range. I might move them down a spot. I think you convinced me a little bit, but they're still like a really good team. So
Yeah, definitely. Definitely still a really good team.
We're splitting
Yeah.
hairs there. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's each re-say our list, and then we'll get to best bets and end this episode. So my list, my runner-up, and I'd like to hear your runner-up, but my runner-up was Indianapolis. I explained that earlier. They're number 11. Seattle's number 10. Kansas City's number 9. They'll probably only move up as they get healthy. Tampa Bay, number 8. Solid. They're just they're a good football team. Baltimore, 7. I explained that. Their defense needs to step up, but they have the offense to be a Super Bowl contender. Los Angeles, the Rams, 6. And then my top 5, Detroit, 5, Green Bay, 4, the Chargers, 3, Buffalo, 2, and Philadelphia, 1. So before we get into our 2 bets really quick, re-say your top 10, just so everyone has a clear picture.
Yeah. So my honorable mention was the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay.
But then I had Indianapolis at 10, Tampa Bay at 9, the LA Chargers at 8. Probably would have moved them up in hindsight. LA Rams at 7, Green Bay at 6, Kansas Buffalo at 3, a point of conversation, and then number 1.
Okay. All right, real quick. So to recap, let me get to our picks from last week. They're not really bets because we're not really betting. But okay, so picks from last week. You had, correct me if I'm wrong, you had Steelers Patriots over 44.5. That went under, unfortunately. It was 21-14. And then you had 49ers minus 1.5. That was a bad beat. They won by 1 point, not 2. So you were 0-2 last week. 2 close calls. For me, I had another 1-1 week. I had Packers minus 7.5. They lost that game, so that didn't hit. And then I took the Lions Ravens over 52.5, and that hit easily. So weirdly enough, I'm 0-2 on betting spreads, but I'm 2-0 on betting over-unders. So maybe I need to bet more over-unders. I don't know. All right, so my 2 picks for this week, I'm going to take Minnesota minus 2.5 in Dublin against Pittsburgh. And then I'm going to take Indianapolis, Los Angeles over 49.5. I think in that game, even though I do think both defenses are good, I'm still waiting to see more from I think this Los Angeles secondary can be had a little bit. Even though the Rams have a really formidable pass rush, and really that's the matchup of this game. It's the Rams pass rush against the Colts offensive line, because the Colts are a great pass blocking offensive line. I think the Rams secondary is there to be had a little bit if you give Daniel Jones some time. They have weapons. I think there's going to be some points in this game. Even though the Colts defense is good, it's not really giving up explosive plays this year. I think the Rams offense is going to be the best that they've seen so far this season. And they're like bottom 6 or 7 in the league in pressure rate. And if you don't pressure Matthew Stafford, he will pick you apart. So I just think there are going to be some points in that game. I'll take that to go over 49.5. And then like Minnesota, Pittsburgh, in Dublin, I'm taking Minnesota minus 2.5. I just think you have really good offensive coach against Mike Tomlin. And I've seen this movie over and over. The Steelers can't run the ball effectively. Their offensive line still isn't good. Minnesota has a great defensive front. I think Brian Flores is going to totally – I think they're going to struggle against this Brian Flores defense. And even though it's Carson Wentz is a better player today than J.J. McCarthy is. I would consider I wouldn't touch the game if it was J.J. McCarthy at quarterback, but since it's Carson Wentz and a good run game and these weapons, and Pittsburgh's defense hasn't been great so far this year, unless Minnesota does what New England does last week and they just give Pittsburgh opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, I think Minnesota's got the better coaching staff by a lot, and I think they just got the better team. So I'll take Minnesota minus 2.5.
Okay. All right. For me, my two picks. First one, I'm gonna take the Bears to win against the Raiders. They're 1.5 point underdogs. So basically, it's a pick 'em. I'm gonna take the Bears there. I really liked what I saw from Ben Johnson offense last week. Caleb Williams looked comfortable for the first time, basically in his entire NFL career so far. So I feel pretty good about that. It's always kind of a tough one when you're picking a tight game like that, but it worked out for me last week when I picked the 49ers over the Cardinals in a game that the Cardinals probably should have won, honestly. But I am going to go with the Bears there. My other one, I feel a little bit better about. I'm going to take the under for Rams and Colts.
Interesting.
It's 49.5. I think that's a really high line for that game. I think those are two pretty good defenses. It could go wrong, definitely, because they're good offenses as well. But I kind of get the feeling like these are two teams that stop the run, aren't going to give up anything easy. And I think it's going to be a little bit more of a, 20-17 type of game than a 24, 27 type of game.
Okay. So to recap, Emmy is taking the under 49.5 on the Rams Colts game, but I'm taking the over 49.5 on that game. So someone will be right and someone will be wrong there. And then I have Minnesota minus 2.5. I think they're beating Pittsburgh by at least a field goal. And then you've got the Bears money line to win outright. They're plus 1.5. Who are they playing again?
The Raiders.
Okay. So those are our bets. I am 2-2. Emmy's 0-4, but things can change in a heartbeat. And both of us have had some bad luck so far this year. So, yeah, that's it. Any parting shots before?
Wait, am I 0-4? I thought I picked the 49ers last week.
You had them minus 1.5.
Oh,
and they won by 1. So you kind of got that.
Oh,
That's
okay,
what I was
okay.
saying.
That
It's
makes
like
sense.
bad luck.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Like you had the right team, but they only won by 1 and not 2. So,
yeah. No. Okay.
So yeah.
Well,
any parting shots before we wrap this thing up? Great episode.
Well, hopefully I get a win on the board for the betting segment for my sake. Holy crap. I can't go winless in this thing, can I? But yeah, no, super fun episode. I feel pretty good about this power ranking segment being a kind of a stalwart for us throughout the season. I like this segment a lot. I like the structure of it. So yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah, we are done here. I don't know what it will look like next week. Are we going to go back to overreactions or reality? I don't know. Maybe we're going to do something else. I don't know. It'll be something that you've probably seen before for next week's NFL episode. We'll probably do power rankings again and 3 or 4 more weeks towards the middle of the season. And again, those are going to look different. It'll be interesting. Try to save your rankings from today. Put them somewhere so that we can kind of compare in like a month from now. But yeah, I'm super excited for this weekend. Got a full like 3 days coming up of just nonstop sports everywhere. So let's get it. Emmy, you can sign us off.
Yeah. Until next time, y'all. Peace out. Thanks for watching.
Peace.